This show is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find the other great shows on the network, head over to the deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Bev's Video Kingdom is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
Bev's Video Kingdom is brought to you by concussionsareforpussies.com. This is Coach Brick Holzhauser. What's wrong? Get your bell rung? You seeing stars again? Feeling a little wobbly in your knees after that last head-to-head contact? Well, get your ass to the sidelines, pull up your tablet, and go to concussionsareforpussies.com. Our website was specifically designed by real experts who know exactly what it takes to get back in the game. An all-star panel of former coaches, players, and equipment managers put together a simple test that'll prove that you're not a pussy and can get you back on the field and we can win that championship. Look, it's easy. You just hit the big red button on the middle of the screen and you'll be asked 3 randomly generated questions. For example, 2 + 2 = 4. Do you agree? Yes or no? Or, you have a last name, right? Or, football is the best game ever and not for pussies. Do you agree? Wait, what was that? What about science? Have you ever seen a scientist? They look like pussies. Of course they're going to say you have a concussion. Fuck science and get your ass to the concussionsareforpussies.com. Don't be a pussy.
I mean, that's basically coaching through the 90s at all levels of football.
Accurate. That's accurate.
Yeah.
Do you coach for the local high school? Because I've heard that speech before.
Hello, BVK. It is time for a new BVK podcast, and we are talking about a movie called Jerry Maguire. And I have to really quick say that due to the problems of recording a podcast based on when it comes out, on the last podcast, the last draft, you might have heard me talking up the San Francisco 49ers. And since then, they've been pretty much shit. And by now, maybe they just killed the Rams and everything's great again. But yeah, I'm not going to talk football anymore because it seems to not work out on the pod. So.
I like how you were like trying to kind of bring in the theme of real football in or whatever, and it's like just because we record these things a little bit ahead of time.
I know.
It's like before that, it seems like we were talking like shit on them and they like were sucking and all of a sudden they did really great. And
it's all not matched up with when things are actually happening.
Right.
So
who knows? They might be world beaters right now.
Maybe one of these days we'll start putting out some Patreons where you can hear us talk, sports or music or things that are going on outside of the movies we're talking about. But Jerry Maguire, Cameron Crowe, a big, gigantic hit for him, a $50 million budget that ends up grossing worldwide $270 million. So, I mean, just knocks it out of the park. But it's a fun one to go back to now in the present because it's at the time, it was this amazing blend of, it's the romantic comedy that you can take your guy to and he's going to love it because it's got football. And it's a very smart mix of romantic comedy with sports movie. And it actually kind of, I told my daughter, we started watching it and I was like, it's a romantic comedy. I think you might like it. And it was pretty much starts off all sports. It's all sports agent stuff for like the first 20 minutes. And she's just like, yeah, not interested in this. And she bounced.
Did he make it past the intro?
No, it was 20 minutes in. She's like, okay, sports agent shit. I'm not into this. Oh, there's no romantic comedy here for me.
So I mean, this gets right to maybe my hottest take, which is, and you and I have disagreed about this. This is just not a romantic comedy. Like, I think at most charitable, you could call it a romantic dramedy. And I mean, there's definitional issues here. I mean, you could always try to parse things different ways in terms of but the classic romantic comedy is pretty formulaic, and definitely focuses solely or heavily on like that relationship. So right there, right, you talk about it sort of a blend of a sports movie and a romantic comedy. I think there's enough of that other stuff in there that it makes the romantic relationship part of it at least a co-star, if not like even secondary, I think, to the sports movie, I would argue. And second, is it funny? I mean, there's funny parts, but like it's not all that light. Like it's charming, it's super charming, and there are some funny lines, but it's not like kind of the classic.
I would say it's more funny than charming. There's a lot more problematic shit than charming shit in this movie, for sure. But before we get too deep into that, DEN Network.
You read my mind. I was sitting here trying to think how to segue out of this, and the best way to segue is just to fucking jump right into it, I guess. Thank you, Zach. Oh my god, it's so great how I couldn't figure out how to do it. You figured it out for me. So we are part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Go to theden.show. There's all kinds of different shows you can listen to, various subjects. There's movie podcasts. There's pop culture podcasts. There's anything you want to listen to.
And there's a cool Centaur show, right?
A Centaur show.
Horsing around.
Oh, right.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the podcast of the month, which is horsing around. I'm not sure what that has to do with centaurs, but I guess it's part horse, part man.
Part
horse, part man. Sounds like their show, bro.
There you go, bro.
Fucking on the nose.
Yeah. So horsing around. There's a hair studio, the Red Horse Hair Studio. It's like a barbershop. You go in there, you start talking about random shit. That's kind of what this podcast is about. They're talking about like, conspiracy theories, monsters, ghosts, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you can check that out on theden.show, horsing around. I've listened to a few episodes. They talk about the Flat Earth Society, talk about bottles up the asses of random dudes. It's just, it gets fucking fun and crazy. And
it's one of my
check
favorite topics.
Yeah. You like bottles up the ass, don't you?
Speaking of which, back to Kelly Preston. So
I gotta say, Jerry Maguire, though, it's an interesting take because if you think of an earlier movie, Bull Durham is kind of that whole question of, is it romantic comedy or is it like a sports drama? What's going on here? And I think this is the kind of the football version of that.
So I would say yes to that, except, yeah, I think that's fair. But I probably wouldn't call I lean toward Bull Durham as a sports movie. And I know that's not necessarily a popular opinion.
I think Bull Durham's more of a sports movie than Jerry Maguire is a sports movie.
Ooh,
I agree.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think there's more baseball in Bull Durham than there's football in Jerry Maguire.
I think the baseball takes more of a front seat, and in Jerry Maguire, the football takes a back seat.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe to me it's partly it comes less to the structure of the movie and more to like what hits, which is in Jerry Maguire, I'm more captivated by the relationship between Jerry and Rod than I am between Jerry and Dorothy. So like there are things about it and interpretations of that that I think are really great, like the romantic part of that, which is a little bit more bittersweet and a little more complicated than it is on the surface. I think then maybe you like that part of it better. But Jerry and Rod, right? Like it's that in some ways that the evolution of that relationship is my favorite, and that to me makes it less of the romance and more of the friendship or relationship of two people that are not in a romantic relationship.
So we had a request from one of our listeners to tell them where we watched this movie. So if you are going to take an Air Alaska flight to Hawaii, you can stream this for free on the plane. And that is where I watched it on my phone with my headphones in. So it's also on HBO Max. So if you guys want to watch this movie.
I had the same experience watching some movies that probably weren't necessarily appropriate for planes. I thought they would automatically edit out some of maybe the worst parts, but they don't. So, did you feel uncomfortable at all in a couple of the scenes, particularly when Kelly Preston is enjoying herself?
Ever stop fucking me.
So this brings the best story about this movie that I have, which is our friend Justin, who was on the pod for Spotlight. Yeah. So
Hot spot.
Justin has an amazing story where he has two brothers and two wonderful parents, and they said, we're going to watch a movie tonight. And they said, okay, boys, come on and sit down. And they're young. They're little boys. And they go and sit down.
This is 96 when this comes out.
And they're going to watch, it's probably 97 because it's on video. They probably rented it at Bev's Video Kingdom.
Yep.
And they bring it home and they're going to watch.
So Justin's 8th grade.
Yep. And then his brother's in 7th grade and the other one's in like 4th grade. And they're all sitting around the fire, and they got the dogs, and, you know, mom and dad are sitting there, and they're like, all right, we're going to watch this movie. It's a heartfelt romantic comedy. Here we go. And they
football,
press play.
lots of football, boys.
And about 20 minutes in, like right after Brad's daughter quit the movie and left the movie, there is a prolonged sex scene, side boob scene with Kelly Preston and Jerry Maguire, and don't ever stop fucking me, and they're having sex, and it's really sweaty and awesome, and the boys, Justin and his brothers, are just enthralled with this scene, and his mom is absolutely losing her mind. Get the remote, turn this off, oh my god. And they can't find the remote, and they're scrambling for the remote, and the scene actually ends before they ever find the remote. And so the brothers sat there and watched the whole
I'm
movie.
glad they got to hear about the threesome. Like, hey, she's into the threesome. It's not because she's into girls, but because she wants to do it for him.
The way that he tells the story about his mom just absolutely losing her mind, frantically trying to find the remote, yelling at his dad like, find the remote, Jerry, where is it? You know, it's just so freaking funny.
It's on the nose. It's an on the nose segue where he goes, where Dorothy says, "Oh, she's probably a classy girl," and then it jumps right into that.
It comes out of nowhere, and if you don't know what's coming and you're watching it with your 3 young boys, it could get a little awkward.
So my biggest surprise going into this was it popped up and it said it was rated R.
Yeah, I was just going to make this point,
and I was like, "How is this movie rated R?" And I'm thinking about the movie. It's like, I mean, there's not a lot of F-bombs. It's like whatever. And all of a sudden, the don't ever stop fucking me scene comes on. I was like, literally, did that scene make this movie rated R?
All it takes is just the side of Kelly Preston's boob to make a movie R-rated.
That's a powerful
There's
boob.
also a fair number of F-bombs.
Yeah, there's
enough that might have done it.
I mean, the little kid says fuck.
That's true.
But I mean, I think that sex scene combined with her saying, see, I think that like the way you use the word fuck in a scene really matters.
Right.
And the worst possible way you can do it from a rating standpoint is for a woman to say something about fucking when she's being fucked. Like that's auto R, right? Like it's too graphic.
Auto R. I think you're right.
So that's worse than Jonathan Lipnicki saying, you said fuck.
Yeah. I think a 4-year-old saying fuck is much more offensive to the public than
You've got the little redhead kid at the beginning, the hockey player's son. He says, fuck you.
That's right.
And he flips him off.
You know what? I just don't think of this as an R-rated movie. And it's pretty crazy that an R-rated movie got $273 million.
They could have adjusted it to a PG-13 pretty damn easily.
Yeah.
And I really could have.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't know if that opens up to more markets.
I mean, if we lose the side boob, I say no.
So you said $273 million. So this movie was a huge hit, right?
Yeah,
huge.
I think she says something different, and you still get the side boob in a PG-13.
I totally agree. I think if she doesn't say that line, and if you take out two or three of the other F-bombs, it's a PG-13 easy.
Yeah.
I think you lose a little bit of the kind of, award. This was like an Oscar-nominated movie, right?
Well, Cuba won the best.
Exactly. So, like, I think you lose a little bit out of PG-13. I think you take it more seriously as an Oscar voter.
So if she says "Don't ever stop freaking me," then Cuba doesn't win the Oscar. Is that what you're saying right now?
I mean, the change would simply, literally, just be her saying, "Don't ever stop." Don't, like you could literally just take the word out and it would be, I think, a PG-13 movie.
I think she should say effing.
Yeah, that would be.
No.
Don't ever stop effing me. That'd be wonderful.
Super, super religious.
Oh, man. So we've got a movie here that, like I said, it was a very crossover as far as it's not a traditional romantic comedy. You've got the whole football sports agent aspect of it. And do we want to bring Cameron Crowe in here to have some discussions?
Wait, did we literally just blow past?
I don't think so. I don't think we're there yet.
For the love of God, Brad, how far are you tired?
I have reactions.
So Here's my question to you guys. I know you've all seen it. We'd already discussed it. We already seen it. Is this a movie that you watch like, oh, it's on, I can't wait to watch it? Or is it something like you saw once and you're like, yeah.
Wait, hold on. We got through Zach's porn, like plain porn, and then we didn't talk about where anyone else watched the movie.
Yeah, how'd you watch the movie, Scott Beck?
HBO Max.
Okay.
But you do it in the cantina on the big screen? In the house on the...
Just in my house.
I mentioned I tried to have my kids watch it, and they one left after 20 minutes and one left after an hour.
Okay.
Oh, an hour in, and he was able to walk away?
Yeah, he was just like,
surprising.
So, okay, so real quick.
Wait, Nate.
So I, as in the rarest of possible events, I watched this movie in one piece
sitting.
on a regular TV. And interestingly enough, I found that like I've known my wife a long time, and I know a lot about her, and I did not know that she was like such a Jerry Maguire fanatic.
Really?
But interestingly,
That surprises
she loves the movie and has seen it a lot of times. Like she knew all the quotes, but has real problems with it. So like
I've got a lot of problems.
and I think like she really likes it, so they don't undermine her liking the movie. But I legitimately, by the end of like the movie, where she had a lot of very interesting commentary, I was like, why am I going out to do this pod? Like, can I just put the kids to bed and go to sleep, and you can just fill
she
in?
could come out here?
Oh, she'd be way better than me. Well, absolutely.
That's
I think
true. That's true.
I think we all agree with that.
I have an interesting question for you guys, and this is related to an old podcast. We did Top Gun not too long ago, and our draft for that was the most memorable Tom Cruise characters. Off the top of your heads, what pick do you think Jerry Maguire went for Tom Cruise characters
In that draft?
Third round.
in that
think
draft? Just give me a number pick. Like
Second overall.
12.
I'd say he probably went 7th.
Scotch Beck wins the closest to it. Was the 6th overall pick.
Really?
Behind Maverick, Ethan Hunt, Cage from Edge of Tomorrow, David Ames from Vanilla Sky, and Lieutenant Daniel Caffey from A Few Good Men.
That was a terrible draft. Like this is that's an insane set of picks. I mean, the only one that really should be ahead of that is Caffey. I think. I mean, Caffey and Maverick.
So
he should have been third.
So you're saying, but and we're talking memorable, not best.
Yeah, most memorable Tom Cruise
memorable.
roles.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Jerry Maguire, thinking back on it now and after watching this movie, I feel like it should be a first-round pick.
So I think we're stepping on the lead here, and that is that, like, the whole movie, all I could think is that Jerry Maguire's a colossal piece of shit. Like, my God.
Yeah.
The way that he fucking manipulates Renee Zellweger's character, like, the entire way through the movie, and fucking asks her to marry him and knows that she's going to say yes. The way she tells him, no, I don't want to have sex with you. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to stand on your porch and kiss your neck until you fucking...
He
Dude,
seduces the fuck
this
out of
shit
her
is
with kissing her neck.
problematic.
Wait, does she say...
And I'm not even trying to be woke. I'm just like,
Does she say she doesn't want to have sex on the moment when they're staying on the porch?
No.
I think she literally like, no, I don't think we should do this. And he's like, okay. And then he just continues to like kiss her clavicle and shit.
Yeah.
It's not romantic. It's like squirmy, bro. It made me feel weird.
Squirmy locust.
So this was almost exactly my wife's take, which is she just was really like, Jerry Maguire's terrible.
Yeah.
Like he's terrible to everyone, and he's in it for himself and only does good things for other people when it's like he's aligned with
And he
them.
feels really bad for himself when shit goes really bad, when he's been like a terrible piece of shit.
He's a little bit of a tough hang.
So I want to rewind just a little bit because, like, when we talked about it, a few weeks ago, we were hanging out at the cantina. We're like talking about the next movies we're going to do. We're kind of throwing out, hey, I'd like to do this one. I'd like to do this one. And Brad threw out Jerry Maguire. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I love that movie. I've seen it literally dozens of times. Like, maybe not start from finish, but like when it's on, it's always on. I loved it. When it came out, I loved it. And so I was excited. Sweet. Next week, we're doing Jerry Maguire. All right. So I cue it up and I'm watching it, and I watched it in a completely different way. Yeah. Like I think I watched it objectively, and it was a fucking different watch. I really didn't like, as I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, Tom Cruise, he got the girl, he won, he beat Bob Sugar, fuck that guy. This time, to me, the hero was Tidwell. Like I like
1,000%.
I loved that character. I loved his romance with his wife was way more organic and real than anything fucking Jerry Maguire did. And it was really weird because at the end of the movie, I just kind of sat there going, ugh, I think I've understood this movie wrong this whole time.
I mean,
I still like the movie, but it's different.
I'll even say a hair spin on that and say, like, competing for the hero of the movie is Tidwell's wife.
She's,
but, you know what I mean? Like, in some ways, like, she's a total badass in the face of, like, being pregnant and, like, being worried about
and
things.
extremely supportive, and like she's got his back the whole time. And
I want to like try to parse something here that I think is important. I 100% agree with the take that Jerry Maguire is kind of like, the more you look at him, the more you're kind of like, both time goes by, and if you just sort of look at it in a different way, you're like, yeah, he's not a great dude, and maybe he's not really the hero of this.
He's an agent. He lies.
I don't think that makes it not an enjoyable movie, and I don't think that makes it not a good movie.
No, it was. I liked it.
So in some ways, right, like I watched it a little bit differently probably this time too, and I actually think that the charitable interpretation of this movie for Cameron Crowe is, I think, that one, which is he intends the complexity of the movie exactly as it unfolds when we see it now. He intends Jerry Maguire to be pretty thin layered and be like, you're not great. He intends their romance to be pretty fickle and like you don't really buy it even in the end. I think there's a lot of things about the movie that make it still really enjoyable and maybe make it a little less vanilla or a little less simple than most romantic comedies. So
and I know the first time I watched it, it was just straight up vanilla. Fucking just sign me up. This is great. You had me at hello. You complete me. And I'm like, fuck yeah, Jerry went. That was my first experience with this. I walked out of the theater going, oh my God, that was great. I love Jerry Maguire.
The scene that gets to me that I had so many just questions about is what makes him change at the end? Is it he's just like, oh, now I'm financially stable? Is that all that it is? That Rod catches the touchdown on Monday Night Football and he's just like, now I think I really want to be married to this woman. Like,
exactly.
What about
point.
that? What about that event? Like, makes him like change his mind about how he feels about a woman.
So that's where the problems come in. Is that like the only reason, literally the only reason that he decides to do anything with Renee Zellweger is because he loses everyone else. There's no one else. And they even make the point in the movie to say Jerry can't be alone. Yep. Jerry can't be by himself.
He says like, oh, I just came over here because, I can't be alone. He says it to her like first thing when he walks in the door. When he's
himself.
He's just like, you're the only one that'll talk to me, and I guess you have a vagina, so I guess I'm going to try and fuck you. Like, that's literally how it goes. And she's like so desperate for love and has been like crushing on him, and he knows that she's been crushing on him, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to take advantage of this bitch. Maybe we'll, you know what I mean? It's terrible.
He hears her saying like the most intimate things about him while he's just like hiding out in the hallway, and like he's like, oh, yeah, she is in love with me. He
knows there's no missing. He's not going to come up to the plate and fucking miss the curveball. He knows it's a fucking slow changeup right down the middle. He hears the fucking drums in the outfield from the fucking Astros fans. He knows what's coming, and he knows he's going to hit it.
Astros might be world champions at this point. I don't know.
I hope not.
So again, like back to the, if I'm giving the really charitable interpretation, right? Like I think that this is the rope-a-dope that Cameron Crowe is giving you, which is in the end, right? One version of it, one way to look at it is he figures out. I mean, they're setting you up to think that like he has an intimacy problem, and then all of a sudden he realizes, like in order to really not be alone, I need to be able to like get over this sort of intimacy issue. And so somehow he realizes like he has this great moment. He wants to share it with someone, and the only way he can share it is to like let down the guard. Right. This is the whole secret garden thing, which I have a fucking whole story about later. But I think then like the rope-a-dope here is like he really just was alone. He just really was the same guy he always was. He didn't want to be alone. He realized all of a sudden he was alone in this really important moment. So he's like, yeah, I still don't want to be alone. I'm going to go be with her and like just come to terms with the fact that
it's like we've talked about numerous times with other movies. Like what was the movie where we decided that they're going to break up like 5? Good Will Hunting. Yeah. Like it's like this
we decided that, Zach.
Like how long are they married?
I think this needs to become a bit because it's the official Zach how long will they stay together after this movie?
The minute he gets another
over-under on
client,
this?
the minute he gets another client and meets like a Dolphins cheerleader, like he's done. He's gone. You know what I mean?
But it's not only that I like it how that Zach has a timeline, but also a specific way in which things collapse.
Just saying, dude. He is not married to that woman because he loves that woman. He's married to that woman because she's there.
I think that's a great take on this, and why I'm a fan of the complexity of these sorts of things and some of the heartbreak of the romance. So I like this a lot.
I guess my other issue too, before we talk to the director, my other issue is that we're supposed to believe that Jerry Maguire is this great director. This is a long movie.
He's not
right?
a
great director.
Or a great. I'm sorry, a great
Sports agent?
Same thing with Cameron Crowe. We're supposed to believe he's a great director. We're supposed to believe that Jerry Maguire is this great agent, but they don't establish that at any point. Like, there's no montage of him being a great agent, or there's no do you know what I'm saying?
He has that moment where he's like, I will fucking die for you. I'll do this and this. And he's like,
And
he's like, I won't sleep until I see you on the billboard holding the drink that you made. That da 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 da. And he has that whole little rant where it's like, that's the kind of shit he can say. He's doing the same thing as Bob Sugar, but once he gets his little, I'm in my emotions now.
Or when they're hauling off the one guy and like how old was she? 16, and he's like, there's nothing here, other than the fact that he's a tremendous athlete. Like, he's totally.
So they show him a little bit in his
They show him
element,
doing
and
this-
I think the Bob Sugar scenes are supposed to be kind of the way he used to be,
right.
Oh, gotcha.
Well,
because he learned everything from him.
But
Right?
here's another issue I have with
Fucking
Jerry.
Jay Moore.
Jerry as a character is because he writes this memo or mission statement, sorry, and he's like, he does this whole thing, smaller, less clients, less money, and then as soon as he gets fired, he's like, well, now I want all of it. He goes right back to the way he was.
I need all of my clients
he's like,
and
fuck
all
you,
yours.
all yours. Yeah. So it's like, has this guy changed? Is he a good dude? No, he's right back to the douchebag he always was. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Cameron Crowe is going to join us.
I like how Brad just goes, okay, you guys just shit all over my movie.
No.
I like the movie.
I don't think that's shitting on the movie at all.
This is
I
not
think
one
that's some
I'm
of the
jumping
genius
to.
of it.
I'm not jumping on the grenade here because this is a movie that I was like, it was enjoyable, but I'm not sure how I feel about it anymore. But let's go ahead and bring Cameron Crowe. Let's bring Cameron.
What's his name again?
Cameron.
We can ask him about Almost Famous.
Let's bring Cameron Crowe in to talk about this movie.
Pull up a chair and grab yourself a drink. We'll hypothesize what directors think. Maybe sometimes get a guess. Makes us look good. Let's drink, laugh, and pretend we know what we're doing. Drinking with the director, brought to you by Last Call Brewing.
The volume was so loud that time that it was the first time I heard the very beginning. Someone goes, "Dude, I just saw Tom Cruise Maverick." It's like the,
Top Gun Maverick.
yeah, you can hear it super clearly.
That might have been me.
All right. So, folks, we are brought to you by Last Call Brewing. So, before we start talking to Cameron Crowe, we need to. I can't say that name. Struggling here.
Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe is a battle actor.
Cameron Crowe's head weighs 8 pounds. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're drinking. Zach, what do you got in your glass tonight?
I am drinking the honeybee from Blaker Brewing that Nate has on tap here. It's absolutely delicious, and I like it because it doesn't have very much alcohol in it.
Blaker Brewing Series and Atwater, California. Great place.
Yes, sir. Nate, what you got?
I'm back to my OG. I've got some Maker's Mark with some fancy grenadine that Zach and family bought for me for my birthday. Plus, it's a little Diet Pepsi in there.
Delicious.
I see it. Scotchy.
I started with a little bit of Whistle Pig piggyback because it's whiskey drinking weather. It's getting a little chilly out here in old Central California. And then I switched to Mr. Karate, as you like to call it.
Hey.
Karate in the Garage, Last Call. So I'm switching around. I'm drinking all kinds of shit.
Yeah, watch out for those roundhouses. And I am drinking from our friends at Last Call. They did a collaboration with the folks at Around the Horn Brewing up in Groveland. If you're on your way to Yosemite, and you're driving through Groveland, if you're coming from the Bay Area, you're going to go right through Groveland. Around the Horn, great little brewery. They've got some awesome beers, and they made a Saison with last call called the Boys of Saison. It has got that nice little like extra little flavor that you're going to get out of that Saison, little almost like Belgian taste to it. It's pretty damn good. Go ahead and check them out. They've got all sorts of great beers. Everybody I've talked to is like, if you happen to go up to Groveland, hit up Around the Horn because they're making killer brews up there.
I love to taste some Belge when I'm drinking.
A little Belge.
Just drink a little
nothing
Belge.
bad there. All right, so our friend Cameron Crowe has stopped in, and we have already covered one of his movies, and I know Zach wants us to cover a different one as well. That would be Almost Famous that we've covered not too long ago, and Vanilla Sky is one of Zach's favorite movies of all time.
We still haven't done his best movie.
Another T. Cruise and C. Crow.
Yeah, and I love
E. Blunt.
Say Anything is a classic, of course, and some people who have seen some of his more recent stuff have said, you know what, it's kind of fallen off a little bit. But we're talking about Jerry Maguire with Mr. Cameron Crowe. So what you all got to say to this dude?
So I don't know if I want to say this to him, but I guess I do want to talk. So I love Cameron Crowe. I love like half of his movies, or maybe a third. And this is the point, I guess, is I would want to ask him about some choices, which is.
Wait, did you say you love half, maybe a third?
Yeah.
Which a third would be less than half?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a third, like maybe less than that. And I guess what I'm getting at is like we've talked a little bit on this pod about directors that are like batting average directors and directors that are sort of like power hitters. Crowe's a power hitter and not an average guy. And like I think of this with like Scorsese's a little this way too, right? Like makes a lot of movies, some are real dog shit. And Cameron Crowe, I mean, Cameron Crowe, like, I mean,
I'd put Spielberg in that as well. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Spielberg's a great example. On the opposite side, like Tarantino is like maybe the best example of the sort of like he's the Tony Gwynn of movie making, right? Like
100%.
he just base hits. And more than that, right? Some like really great movies, but like he really is selective and does it slowly. He's never going to have, a profile of 40 movies that he directed. So I guess I wonder, I'm curious about the choice about, how do you choose to make movies and what's the process look like? And is it, do you know it's different when you're going to make one that's like a killer versus one that's kind of a flop? Right. And this is, Almost Famous is easily in my top 10, right? Jerry Maguire, I like a lot, but like Almost Famous for me is truly upper echelon.
Agreed.
Aloha is one of the least favorite movies I've watched in the last 10 years. And
I never saw it.
it's garbage. Like it's garbage, and it's made into flaming garbage by the fact that it's wasted such a great cast. And these are both Cameron Crowe. And so for me, I'm like, how does that happen? And like, how do you make those choices that like on the one hand work so well and on the other don't?
This is like one of the problems with Genius, right? Is like, I like one of my favorite bands of all time is Weezer. They wrote 2 of the best albums that have ever been written ever, in my opinion. And then they've written 8 albums that are absolute hot garbage, complete bullshit. And I can't even listen to it.
So, first of all, anybody listening who loves Weezer, they're going to think, oh, yeah, the Blue Album is one of my favorites. And like the green one with Island in the Sun.
You're high right now.
And,
Pinkerton's.
I'm saying
okay.
most people.
Okay.
And I was going to say, and Zach's going to say, well, first of all, Pinkerton's the best album they ever
Thank
made. Because I have a buddy of mine, Josh.
I'm glad you said that.
Josh in Colorado, who's on your team, and he's going to say that's the best album ever.
But it's tough to maintain that level of excellence, right? Like almost nobody does it. Like the Beatles fucking maintain like a level of excellence across all their albums,
and put out a pile of it. Like, I mean,
they're also prolific. Thing, right? So that's the difference. You're right. When you talk about batting average and slugging percentage, right? Yeah.
Who can do both, right? Like, and there just are so few that are that good and that prolific.
Almost nobody.
So, and it is interesting because he went Jerry Maguire, Almost Famous, Vanilla Sky, which honestly I haven't seen. I saw the original version, and I still haven't watched Vanilla Sky, his version. And then Elizabethtown, I never saw.
Which was okay, but pretty, I think, widely thought to be
Right.
pretty bad.
We Bought a Zoo.
Awful.
Which I think is a better romantic comedy than this movie. and then Aloha, which I never saw. And then he hasn't done anything since, which that was probably about 5 years ago.
Aloha might have killed his career. It was that bad.
So he hasn't done anything since Aloha.
But just to go backwards, right? I mean, he does Fast Times.
Well, he wrote it.
Writes Fast Times.
Yeah, right. And so Say Anything was his first directing.
Right. Which is
right. Say Anything's amazing. Then Singles, which is a movie I haven't seen in a long time, but a phenomenal movie as well. So he comes out and he has a couple great films, and then Jerry Maguire is his third one. He's just knocking it out of the park each time, but then he just goes off a fucking cliff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think maybe it's just that like certain things that he does. So this was one of the other points I wanted to get to is what I think part of what's really great about what Cameron Crowe does is that he doesn't seem to be writing, and I'm curious again about this, is he's not really writing or directing from the standpoint of what he thinks other people want to see in a movie. He's kind of like I feel like he's drawing a little bit on like what he thinks, what his own experiences are and what he thinks is cool about them and piecing them together. So like, you know, we know that from Almost Famous, but let me give an example from this movie that really resonated. It all is like motivated in the beginning by this like fever, this awakening that Tom Cruise has in the middle of the night. And it turns out to be this terrible, or maybe great, but maybe terrible idea. All my best and worst ideas have come in the very middle of the night. I mean, this was like a super relatable thing to me. And I was like, how has this never been done quite this way in movies? Because like for me, that was a really resonant experience. Like I'll bet have you all sat up at some point in the night and been like, I'm turning on this thing, or like I have this idea, or I'm trying to solve this problem, and you come up with this fucking grand plan, and like once in a while it's good, and most of the time you wake up in the morning, you're like, dude, I should not do that.
I think that's like such a romantic idea, and to answer you, no, I don't. I'm kind of a piece of shit in the morning when I wake up. I have no idea what's going on, but I like that idea. I like the idea of like, oh my God, this came to me in this moment of, you know, I was asleep and I had this dream, and now I fucking have this idea, and I'm like, better write it down now, or else I'm going to lose it.
Like,
you know what I mean?
But I mean, I'm not asleep. Like I'm like him. Like I all of a sudden wake up. You know, this is maybe once every 6 months. I wake up wired about something, and I like craft out this whole like idea. And like most of the time, I'm like, I need a fucking cooling off period because in the light of day, it sounds horrible.
I mean, in the sense of like, where did Cameron Crowe get this idea? I guess James L. Brooks had a picture of, I believe it was the agent Lee Steinberg with some athlete, and they were kind of like just joking, like, how would you make a movie about this? And that's where he kind of got the inspiration from. And he had talked about getting the great screenwriter Billy Wilder to be a part of the movie. And I guess he had concerns of like, how are you going to make this guy likable? How are you going to make a sports agent likable? And for better or worse, you could say he either failed or he didn't really accomplish like making him super likable. I mean, he's interesting, but is he likable?
Well, it's weird because honestly, when I first watched this movie, I fucking was Team Maguire. I was all about it, and it's just weird that over time it's changed. I'm not sure why it changed. I don't know. Is it me because I'm, you know, like I don't fucking believe in true love anymore or something, or like what the fuck? I don't know.
I think there's the big part of it is
I was younger when I watched this the first time. I don't know.
No, I think it's different. I think it's the fact that we know Tom Cruise to be kind of a crazy person, and he does a lot of Tom Cruise crazy person in this movie.
Yeah. That's something I think
which was before Tom Cruise became the crazy person in the public eye.
Right. So now that we kind of know him in the public eye as being this kind of just semi-nut job, he comes across very nut job a lot of moments in this movie.
Right.
God, I didn't think about that. Now that we know he's a fucking nutter,
right?
When you see him, you don't think of, oh man, I didn't think about that.
But I think maybe another spin on this is like, how do you end up unknowingly rooting for and finding likable a real true villain in a lot of things, right? Like think about, you know, there are lots of movies where, you know, you find yourself unknowingly rooting for somebody that if you step back from it, you're like, man, I mean, I do.
Is it because the movie's named Jerry Maguire and he's the main character? Like you're supposed to root for him?
I think it's because like it's complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no one, you know, there are parts of it that make him likable, and you know, he has moments of likability, he has moments of being charming, and maybe more than anything, right? He has some moments of like self-reflection of his like flaws. Right. And he knows some of this, and and it's not like he's completely oblivious to it, and that makes him a little bit at least relatable, if not likable. So I think some of it is because he is likable, but he's also problematic in terms of like, you know, there's lots of things he does that we don't like.
Because you do root for him because he did come up with a cool concept. It's like, literally, let's stop being greedy assholes. Let's have less clients, less money, and then it backfires. He gets fired, and then here he is like, he's got one chance. He's got Cushman. He's got his big client that he could sign, and then he loses him the night before the draft based on literally a handshake deal. And so so they kind of pull you in with this, like, oh, you feel horrible for him because he lost this amazing, that was going to be his meal ticket, this one client. And so I think thinking about it now, it's like, oh shit, that's why you're rooting for him, because he got screwed over by literally, and it was kind of weird because there was kind of this racist thing with Bo Bridges there.
So this was what I was going to say.
Like, you're in the lobby with the black fella. It's like, was that racist, or like, what's going on?
And he makes this face right after he says it too. Like,
no, I was going to say, you know what holds up the very best? What like ages the very best in this movie? The way racism works.
The casual racism.
Yeah,
I was like,
I was like, yep, that looks exactly about right. Like, that's exactly the way that shit would unfold in the like grossest possible way.
So I can totally see why I was rooting for him the first time I watched this, and kind of why now I'm watching it completely different. I know the whole story. I know what happened. So now I'm kind of nitpicking all the actual real shit that's going on with Jerry Maguire. So I see why that kind of changed. But you can totally see why you're rooting for this guy the first time around.
There's an article I found, speaking of just kind of Jerry Maguire as a person. It's called The Towering Narcissism of Jerry Maguire. It was a New Yorker article, and it kind of speaks to the movie a little bit, but it also speaks to just kind of media always looking for like an article to make. So I guess a few years ago, Cameron Crowe released the actual 25-page document. He actually typed out the memo, the whole mission statement, actually wrote it all out. Cameron Crowe did. And then he released it as part of like the 20-year special edition. And this guy for the New Yorker read the entire 25-page and then says like, "Oh, Jerry Maguire is a complete narcissist." I'm like, but does that count?
The narcissist of all narcissists, right?
But I'm saying this 25-page document actually like it's not actually part of the lexicon of the movie. Does it? Whatever Cameron Crowe wrote, does that actually reflect on Jerry Maguire? But Jerry Maguire does a good job of being a narcissist, I think, on his own.
Agreed.
In the movie, you don't need to quote the 25-page document.
But Jerry Maguire also proves time and time again that he only gives a shit about you if you can do something for him. He only cares about the Renee Zellweger character when she's the only one around and the only one that he can have sex with. He only cares about Rod Tidwell when Rod Tidwell's the only one that happens to stick with him.
It's the last goddamn scene in the movie. He's like, all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, your boy's got a good arm. We can exploit that, right?"
Okay.
I mean, it's maybe tongue in cheek.
You're stepping all over my body bag right now.
Okay, on the first point, let me push back for a second. Like, Dorothy's the only one that we see, but he's a good-looking sports agent, right? So like, I mean, there's a little bit of a like, you know, we're presented as though she's like the only person he can hang with, but
he's
like,
looking for somebody he's looking for somebody to take care of him. I mean, I say that he's looking for somebody to have sex with, but I think he's looking for more of a mom figure than he's looking for a sexual partner. It just happens to be that she's okay looking enough that he wants to have sex with her.
I guess so. I'm less convinced by that in the sense that what I think is more, I mean, maybe not taken care of. I think what he's drawn to in some ways is like he likes the idea of like of a family maybe and of a unit, right? He likes the kid. And so in some ways maybe that's the greater crime, is that he's kind of, you know, to me it's less about Dorothy, which, you know, you can make plenty of arguments about why that's not great. But, you know, he's pretty careless with the fact that this kid's around, and like he's kind of, I don't know, a little haphazard about that.
It's one of those, like, you don't introduce your kid to your boyfriend on the first date.
Oh, well,
right?
Dorothy has all kinds of problems. Yeah. I mean, we don't talk about this. But since we have Cameron Crowe, I want to point out two things that, like, you know, surround his genius that are on display here. One is he somehow manages to, like, find, recruit, retain, mold the best possible talent in a lot of cases. I mean, think about who, you know, the people in this movie. forget, obviously Tom Cruise, and we said he was this was the 7th most memorable role. I would say
we said
third.
6.
But like Tom Cruise is maybe the ultimate movie star, so he gets him. That's obviously that's a no brainer at that point. But Renee Zellweger is relatively early in her career at this point.
This was a big coming out for her,
and she kills. I mean, she's really incredible in this. Her sister,
Bonnie Hunt,
who's played by Bonnie Hunt, is
great.
I would say. So I was going through like, is this the actor's best role? Bonnie Hunt, I say yes. Kelly
she
Preston
does a lot in a little bit.
Kelly Preston, I say yes.
Marnie and twins, but okay.
Cuba Gooding Jr., I think it's hard to argue that it's not. I mean, maybe Boys in the Hood, maybe Boys in the Hood, but otherwise, no way that this isn't his best.
He won the Oscar for this. So
fucking Jay Moore.
Jay Moore. I mean, it's basically Jay Moore's coming out, and Jay Moore is just a killer in this.
Yeah.
So it's like you look through and you're like, these are all people. Regina King, who's great actually, and maybe the one that has the other than Tom Cruise, the best portfolio of things to compete with this for her. She's great in this.
Glenn Fry. Sorry,
coming out of left field as the football coach, and Jerry Cantrell is the Kinko's operator.
Yeah.
Just put your balls out there, man. Alice in Chains.
That's how you do it.
Yeah,
just hang your balls out.
I do love how Cameron Crowe definitely brings in all his rock star background. He's like, hey, Glenn Fry would have been in this movie.
So that's 1 and 2, like the soundtrack. We've gotten this far into it, and haven't talked about the soundtrack. I mean, Cameron Crowe's soundtracks are legendarily good. Maybe he's not the very best at this, but he's in the top, upper echelon of directors that do soundtracks. And this one, there's some, the prevalence of the Secret Garden song, which fits really well with, I think, the theme of the movie, which I'll talk about in a bit. And also the like Free Fallin' as this like sing along in the car is great.
That's so funny.
The closing song
that's the funniest part of the movie, I think.
Secret
sings
Garden
it all triumphantly, but it's like obviously shit's falling apart. It's fucking great.
I was thinking about this earlier, and there's probably movies that'll contradict myself, but it's like I'm not a big fan of like you use the Secret Garden early and then you bring it back for like the verse about her like a little bit later. Like I'm not a big fan of like bringing back the same song like multiple times.
I think it makes it more impactful, just like Muse in High Tension.
Oh, absolutely.
If you haven't listened to the High Tension pod, please go back. It's goddamn entertaining.
Well, real quick on our BVK history, we kind of started with a little bit of a homage to the rewatchables. That's kind of where we got our start, and that's Bill Simmons' podcast on the Ringer Network. And I gotta say, when Bill Simmons talks about this movie, and I think he did it first in an article where he tried to break down the fact that Jerry Maguire goes to Monday Night Football, which always starts at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 Pacific time. He's in Tempe, Arizona. The game's gonna get over about 8:30, 9 probably. He goes to the locker room to wait for him, to get out of the locker room and all this stuff. He's hanging out a bunch with them afterwards, talking to him. And then he finally decides to go back home to L.A. He goes to the airport, runs to the airport because he realizes he loves his wife.
Right.
He sprints to the airport. He gets on a plane and he flies. So I don't know if we're thinking he left the stadium at 9:30. He gets on the plane 10 o'clock. Maybe 10:30. Maybe
he flies private. Maybe he has a plane waiting. I don't know.
He goes to the regular airport. He doesn't go to the little back gate or anything.
Fair
and
enough.
So he gets back to LA traffic. He takes a cab from whatever airport he lands at to get to her house. Mm-hmm. All those women are still just hanging out, having a great time. It's probably 12:30 by that time, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're just all acting like, they got old ladies here and stuff. Everybody's just having a good conversation. Is this really?
The ladies that I know, you give them a glass of wine and some good gossip, and they will fucking sit there and talk until 2 in the morning. So I think I'm into that. I think that's pretty realistic.
I think there's nothing wrong with this whole theory.
Simmons broke it down trying to figure out how many hours, and I always loved the fact that he really got that deep into it. And I'd love to see what Cameron Crowe feels about breaking that time jump down from leaving the stadium to get back to L.A.
Hey, Cam, next time we see you, we're going to be talking about Vanilla Sky, big dog. So thanks for coming down.
I've got a couple more questions for him real quick.
Fucking hang around.
I'm very upset. There are so many big hits on Rod Tidwell in this movie, and then they decide to go with the little front flip at the end.
I know. I had not noticed that until this time, and I was like, that's barely a hit.
Yeah, he basically just does a little flip and kind of lands on his back. And there's like some of the earlier hits are so much more aggressive.
Brutal.
Why didn't they have him catch and then all of a sudden just get like just drilled? Like it's like they kind of like push him so like he kind of just flips perfectly.
Well, yeah, and
Do
something
like a TO going into the end zone type of hit.
Oh, dude.
It looks
Green
like
Bay
it's
Packers.
a neck injury, but why would you be unconscious with a neck injury? So I never even thought about it until literally right now. It's like,
Oh, you mean the worst doctors ever? They're just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
he's
they're-
been unconscious for a minute and he
they're
might have neck
smacking their
injuries.
hands. Oh shit! They're smacking their hands. Like, is that really a thing you do? Like, you just wake up, wake up.
That's standard
wake up.
protocol, I think. For
And
Where's
then-
the smelling salts?
Yeah, no smelling salts. And then after a minute of being unconscious, he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to get up and start dancing around. They're just like,
Start dancing.
That's
and-
fine.
Yeah.
so two things about that part. So one, I wanted to know who he's based on. Like who's the if Cameron Crowe was like, okay, we want to kind of make Rod Tidwell a mix of.
It's Tua Tagovailoa.
I started thinking about this because I was trying to think like nobody knows who he is, but yet like he set the Arizona Cardinals like record for reception. 110 receptions is no joke. Like if you get 110 receptions,
Well, I don't think no one knows who he is. He's just not like he's as good as, but not getting paid like the very top 3 or 4 guys.
But even in like the coach, Glenn Fry's like, oh, I want the prototypical receiver. It's like, no, he just put in 1,200 yards and 110 catches for you. Obviously, he's doing just fine at whatever his size
But
is.
he's also sort of a possession receiver. He's not like a speedy guy.
No,
he's not.
he's a slot dude.
Yeah, he says, I
agreed.
go across
So-
the middle
so
and
who-
get killed.
yeah.
I get killed.
So who's the slot now? Like who would you say he's the closest to in today's game?
Well, I mean, he's making a lot of catches. He's doing that. I mean, he's probably like you could say he's Michael Thomas, and then he's never going to have another good season after this one.
Yeah, Michael
he's
Thomas
gonna
isn't a bad
He's going to get
comparison.
paid and never do it again.
Randall Cobb from a few years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
I like Randall Cobb.
smaller slot dudes that. Yeah, I mean that's and obviously he is a very small person in real life, so that he was even undersized for an undersized receiver, but it
Maybe
works out.
Maybe Debo. Maybe if we throw Debo in the slot and just have him get destroyed a bunch.
and that's the other thing I was going to say is like it's funny because I think if you were somebody who was not like a football, if you were a young person now, you're watching this when you're 20 right now, you might watch it and be like, man, they really like exaggerated the violence of the game back then.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I was like, that's not as way.
They definitely exaggerated the pads because they're wearing those old like
He looks huge in those pads.
early 1990s pads where everybody's like
But-
the linemen especially have these gigantic shoulder pads that are just like ridiculous.
But I'm saying the hits were like that and worse. I mean, like you kind of you're reminded like just how brutal,
yeah, like where's the flags? Why are
there's
the
no-
refs?
Yeah, they just that's exactly the way it was and worse.
Well, I mean that goes back to ESPN. Even in the early 2000s, they were still doing the segment jacked up. You got jacked up, and they're just showing dudes getting concussions left and right.
Yeah.
You got jacked up. It was awesome.
Back when
Well, they
concussions
showed
were
that. They
funny.
showed that in the movie Concussion in a completely different way, where they're basically saying how they're glorifying the jacked up, and it's like, because have you guys seen Concussion
Oh yeah,
with Will Smith?
yeah.
It's pretty brutal, man. But he's like basically they're showing it as a complete negative. Like, so look how they're glorifying these guys just getting lit the fuck.
Oh yeah,
up.
no. I'm saying,
Yeah.
of course, back then it was like you got fired up, like it's time
Oh,
for
yeah.
jacked up, and you were
I
excited
couldn't
about
wait
it.
for jacked up.
Now
I
it's
loved it.
like,
now it's like
shit, man.
God.
We were watching guys' brains get demolished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But final thing, and I forgot about this line in the movie. And I would love to ask Cameron Crowe if this was an intentional joke, if this was just like a dare, a bet, or something. And I could not believe I forgot that it was in this movie. At the very end, he's on Roy Firestone's show, and he starts talking about his emotional background. And his older brother lost his leg in a tragic bass fishing accident.
I have this note.
I'm just like, what? Wait, tragic bass fishing accident? What the fuck happened
You're not
on
gonna make me
this
cry,
trip?
Roy.
And I loved that he just that's so out of nowhere, dude. It's such a farce.
And Firestone says it with such like seriousness.
Totally
I was like,
serious.
was this a joke line that got through somehow? And they just said, oh, it's funny. Who cares?
I love the idea that like he got tangled in a line, then just a 9-pounder came out of the water and just smashed some lure and took his leg off.
Or just like, did he fall in and like the boat somehow chopped his leg off or something?
With the amount
like,
of bass fishing that you do, Nate, I'm surprised you have both feet.
I'm heavily hobbled by,
Well,
by
I
large
just-
fish.
I know. And Nate and I, we do fish, and I was just like, I was trying to think like what circumstances would have to happen where you're like losing your leg, and like your boat tips over and you're in like a freezing lake and like you can't get back to shore. I don't know.
Well, it's a pretty self-serious movie, and that's a silly ass line to have in.
I mean, it's like borderline like Spinal Tap. Like,
Yes, exactly. It's very Spinal
he
Tap.
died in a bizarre gardening accident.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
very spooky.
and I started legit laughing out loud at the end because I was like, I forgot that line was in here, and I always forgot how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
And like, it just does not seem it fits with the entire movie. So, all right, Cameron Crowe, we will see you again someday soon, I'm sure.
Peace out, bro. We'll see you when we do Who Bought a Zoo.
Bring some whiskey and beer next time.
Who
and
bought
we'll
a zoo?
We bought a zoo.
It was Matt Damon.
Is it a one-night stand, or do you hit it with a shovel, or take it home to mom and dad? It's like fuck, marry, or kill. It's Shag Snack Body Bag.
Ooh, the alternate verse for that could have been like, something about killing somebody with a concussion or like some sort of head injury from football.
Oh man, there's
We
so
really
many
missed
guys
it
you
there.
could go back to, and that's not great. Oh, Junior Seau.
No, dude.
Wow.
Way to take it dark.
Jesus
Jeez,
Christ.
Brad.
Zach led me there. He held me by the hand, just like he did when we did a horror movie.
It's usually what I do.
All right, we're shag, snagging, body bagging. Shag, Scotch, what are you shagging from this film?
I'm shagging all the cameos. The
Sports cameos,
sports
athletes
cameos, the athletes, and I mean even Glenn Fry, and there's like all these people. And what's great, what I love about it is like it kind of takes you back to that time. And I was like especially at the end with the Cowboys game, like Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. Is like Switzer's the coach. I was like, oh shit,
Well,
that was that team,
Yeah, and they filmed at the actual Cowboys Cardinals game,
right?
Oh, really?
for that scene. So
Yeah.
it was an actual real football game, and they just did some of the in between scenes like at halftime and after the game.
But even like the cameos, like Warren Moon being at the bachelor party, and like just like random. It's like it was just kind of cool because you're like sitting going, oh, hey, there's that guy, and it was just cool, and I just loved it. Katarina Witt is hanging out. Like,
Who's signing the big contract where he's like, that's me at the left of the picture? It's
oh, that was Bledsoe.
Bledsoe's,
Drew Bledsoe.
yeah. Drew Bledsoe's in it like 4 different times.
Yeah.
I don't know why he got to hang out in the set so much.
Well, you know.
All right. Well, Nate, what you got for snags? Or shags, I'm sorry. Shags.
I'm going to shag drunk conversations with little kids. So, I loved the conversation between the two, and I'm not saying I've had this experience specifically, but I'm saying sometimes you get into deeper conversations with little kids than, like is normal, and it's really funny. Like occasionally I've had conversations with, my little kids and like, gotten sort of serious with them, and they're looking at me like, I don't know what we're talking about right now, but I think it's important.
I do love his delivery on the blurt where he's like, the zoo's fucking closed right now.
Right.
It's pretty good. Pretty good drunk. As much as I don't think Tom Cruise is a drinker, he plays the drunk pretty
did
well
pretty good.
in that scene, I think.
Oh God, that's a perfect point. Like, he's just acting, right? He has no idea what he's just like, what would a normal person do that had a drink right now?
That's pretty much the way, yeah.
I think he does that in all situations of his life. Like, how would a person interact right now?
How do normal humans behave?
Fucking zoos close rates.
Yeah. Shag, Zach.
So we already talked about it. My favorite scene is when he's in the car and he puts the song on and he wants to sing along, but he doesn't quite know the words, or it's not quite the right song. He changes it. It's not quite the right song.
Of the morning.
He gets to fucking free falling and he sings along with it so earnestly and singing, and like you can kind of see the wheels turning in his head, like fucking, oh, I'm so like, yeah, like, but at the same time, like my world's falling apart, and I just fucking love that. It's really I don't know if it's symbolic, but it's it's really good. I like it.
My shag is the chasing the client scene when he has to get back and he's, Darcy, get me my phone numbers, and he's trying to rush to get his people back, and that whole little quick pace, kind of almost like a montage.
Montage for sure.
And it's a fun scene because it just keeps jumping to Jay Moore, and he's delivering these just badass, like, I'm a badass sports agent lines, and he's like, I don't know, Maguire, he's all fucked up or something, so hey, you got to stick with me. And like he's just being such a douche. And then Jerry, when he has the girl and she's like, Jerry, and then goes over to the other line. That's so classic. I mean, that whole little scene is fun. It's fast paced, and you're just watching his world fall apart.
And Jay Moore's like, why are you crying? Oh, so you're in, huh?
She's
Yeah,
like
you
a
get to see
figure
the
skater
other-
or something.
Yeah, you get to see the other part of the conversation there, and I mean, he's
And that girl was in Home Alone.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she's one of the cousins.
Yeah, that's right.
Or the sister. Yeah.
All right, so now we're on to Snag. Snag, Nate.
It's got to be Cuba Gooding Jr. I mean, if I really step back from this movie and ask, like, what's the one thing it can't live without? It's him. It's not even just his character, right? I don't think it works with very many other actors, and I don't think without him in that role, it's anywhere near as widely loved as it is. I mean, and Tom Cruise is great, and I think Cameron Crowe is great, and the cast in general is great, and he is truly, for me, a step above everyone.
Well, he has a very interesting character arc too, because at first you're like, oh, this guy's kind of full of himself. He's like, it's all about me, and you end up caring for him more than anybody in this movie. At the end, you're like, holy shit, he did what he needed to do. He's getting his contract, and you feel so good for him.
He bet on himself.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that, like, there's some scenes that really show that, like, it's an arc, but it's also kind of a fun internal juxtaposition, which is like he calls and the 8, human head weighs 8 pounds kid answers the phone, and he's yelling at the kid, but he's in the bathtub with his kid that's the same age. Right. He's like, "Who is this? This is your school teacher. I'm about to whoop some ass." And it's like the character is a perfect like contrast to those things without making it feel forced.
Nice.
Zach.
I gotta go after Nate. I pointed at Brad and said, "Let me go after Nate," because I just don't think that there's anyone that I want to shag more from this movie than fucking Regina King, Marcy Tidwell. Dude, she's like the ultimate supportive. She holds it down at home. She gets his back totally. Brad's pointing at his screen that has the same thing for Snag as I do, but man, dude, she's so legit, and she's so just. I've talked about it several times. Like, there's something to be said about having like that ultimate like supportive woman at home or on your arm or whatever it is that is kind of can kind of empower you to do whatever you want. And I think she's totally amazing, and she's great. She's a good actress. She's funny. She's fucking serious. It's really great. That's my snack.
I'm co-signing there, and I'll say the scene that really does it for me is a small scene on the Monday Night Football game. Rod Tidwell gets hurt, and when TP starts kind of talking a little bit shit
after him,
because she kind of like she you can see her, she's losing her patience, and then he says one more thing, and she says something for a second, and then you can see her like think about it for like just like 5 seconds more, and that's when she just goes ballistic and just starts trying to beat the shit out of him.
That slap and that kick when they're like whoever's grabbing her and holding her off, like she makes contact. She smacks him across the head.
She's very aggressive in that scene. It's like, damn, that's some good acting. And
Aries Spears.
I was gonna say it's Aries Spears. Yeah.
Anyway, but no, Regina King. Later on, she goes into The Watchmen, and if you watch Jerry Maguire playing this like loving wife and stuff, and then you go to The Watchmen where she's just a badass and like she's got
so
a hard
fucking
edge to it. She was Huey and Riley's voices in the Boondocks cartoon series on the Adult Swim. Directed One Night in Miami. I don't know if any of you guys saw that, where it was Sam Cooke, Ali, Malcolm X, and Jim Brown all staying like in a hotel together. Pretty cool movie. So
dude, watch the reboot of The Watchmen on HBO. The series
that is some
very
good
fucking
shit.
good.
She's badass in that. So all right, Regina King, Scotch. Final snag.
I'm gonna snag Jay Moore as Bob Sugar.
Yeah,
he's so smarmy.
He was my second pick.
So slick. Well, it's funny because I listed Jay Moore first and then Cuba Gooding next. So, and you took Cuba, Nate. So I was like, okay, at least I got Jay Moore. You hate him so much, which it sucks so bad because he's such an asshole, but it makes it so great at the end when he tries to hug his guy. It's like, why don't we have a relationship like that? And just the whole thing, how it all comes crumbling down, it just makes it feel so good.
He's still rich as fuck with a lot of clients.
Oh, he's doing fine. But just to see him get a little bit of a fuck you at the end is great.
He's such a good douche, though.
Jay Moore is so great
when he takes him to the restaurant and just his like just the way he's kind of smiling at him.
He's so smarmy, dude.
Or like just like he's like when Jerry's doing his whole like breakdown thing, and he just kind of waves at him. He does little waves, like
so
bye-bye.
Happy to tell him he's getting fired.
Jay Moore is awesome. There's a great. So he did a podcast like years ago. I listened to it, and I know we talk shit about Tom Cruise and about how crazy he is or whatever. It was just kind of cool to hear his side, Jay Moore, talking about working with Tom Cruise. And it was neat to hear how cool he was with Jay Moore, because Jay Moore really hadn't done very much.
No, he was really new to it.
And Tom Cruise was just super welcoming and super warm and helped him out, and they worked the scenes together. So it's kind of another side of this thing. It's like all you hear about is Tom Cruise jumping up on the couch and being weird or whatever, and all Scientology and all that shit. He's a wacko. Great. But at the same time, he's also super enthusiastic. He's an actor that gives a shit about what he does. There's another a great audiobook I've listened to, How I Slept My Way to the Middle by A Few Good Men, the actor
Kevin Pollak.
Thank you so much, Kevin Pollak. He also had a lot of great things to say about Tom Cruise.
So I've heard this take a bunch, which is like, for whatever crazy, as an actor to other actors on the movies he's on, he's great. People love him. I mean, the other actors think he's great. Back to just real quick on the Jay Moore thing. So I loved him in this role, but I also he's a multi-talented dude. So I used to listen to the Jim Rome show a lot back in the late 90s.
His impressions.
And he subbed for Jim Rome all the time as a sports talk dude.
I'm going to go body bag real quick because, when you're the one leading the show, you can go first, and I don't want it to get stolen. I will not be surprised if other people had this. Mm-hmm. And here's the funny take. When I first saw the movie, this didn't bother me. Watching the movie now and finding out what the situation is, I just could not believe it's in the movie. Dickie Fox is not needed at all in this movie. The old guy that's supposed to be
his mentor.
When I watched the movie the first
weird,
time,
where he's just sitting at the desk talking.
Yes. So I thought it was an actual this is the real sports agent. This is a real person that it was based on. So they're just giving him some little screen time because he's who it's based on, and he gets to kind of talk about his life lessons and stuff. No, this is somebody, actually one of the heads of the studio or something that they hired to be this Dickie Fox character. And it's just mind-boggling. Why the fuck is this part in the movie? Jerry narrates most of the movie when he needs to. Why do you have this old guy come out of left field 5 different times and just say some random shit?
Because because he's saying all the good stuff that Jerry is finally realizing is what he should be doing, type thing. I guess.
I think it's.
I never
so
thought about it
unneeded.
till now, and I'm kind of agreeing with you. It's
it's the fact that if it was the real guy, if he was a real person, and it's just it's cool to have this real person in the movie talking about their experiences as a sports agent. Hey, I wouldn't mind it. The fact that it's a character that's not even real, get that shit out of my movie. We don't need that. That's 5 extra minutes we could have cut from this movie. No agreement.
I don't.
It didn't bother.
I never even noticed it. Really, I didn't even know who you were talking about until I was like, "Oh, the old guy that's kind of there."
See, that's what I'm saying though. Is it necessary? If it's not, it seems like if it's missing, if that's taken out of the movie,
if your heart isn't in it, then your head doesn't matter. Or whatever the fuck.
I think it's totally not necessary.
You lose
but
nothing.
It's not super distracting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I wanted to be a real person.
Speaking of super distracting, the worst part of this movie is the last 10 seconds when Jonathan Lipnicki picks up the baseball and throws it in a throw that maybe goes 2 feet.
And
it flies over.
It's a sidearmed,
the worst form, the worst throw. And I'm not trying to shame a little kid. He's a little kid. I turned to my wife and I was like, "What the fuck was that?" She's like, "That kid's 4." I'm like, "I don't care." She was all mad at me because I was pissed about it. But the fact that he turns to the wife and is like, "We're gonna fuck," there's no way. You're just an agent. You're not an evaluator of talent. Obviously, you're not an evaluator of talent because you just saw that throw and thought, "Oh my god, this kid could go to the majors." Literally, I would have thought maybe we should not have him play sports because he's gonna get embarrassed and fucking kids are gonna make fun of him.
But the ball goes
up. The ball goes up.
No,
when he throws it sideways and it goes down.
No, movie
Jesus
magic.
Fuck!
Magic.
I was just absolutely floored by that. There's so much sports action in this movie that could be like, there's some ridiculous stuff in the NFL action, but it's like for the most part, like kind of, sort of there.
Yeah.
But that scene is just inexcusable to me. The fact that he turns to her and is like, well, maybe he could be a pitcher for the Yankees or whatever the fuck. It makes zero sense. I hate it. Get it out of here.
So Zach was also the guy who was probably throwing his club at his golf coach back in the day.
Definitely not.
Diddly squat, coach.
So I'm going to body bag right on top of that. And I'm going to say it's also the last scene, but for a totally different reason, which is the charitable interpretation of this for Cameron Crowe is that we're all supposed to realize that this isn't going to work. I think the probably more likely interpretation is that he's trying to wrap this thing up in a bow that makes us believe that all of a sudden they figured out they really love each other. And for me, I'm like, I think that's what he's probably actually trying to do, and I don't buy that at all for all the reasons we've talked about. And I think one of the things that also gets overlooked here a little bit, because we've talked a lot about how Jerry, sort of the narcissist in Jerry, is trying to force himself to marry her and do all these things. I mean, her opening, she's clearly just sort of infatuated with him and looking for somebody, she finds him attractive and magnetic. And so she's sort of overlooking the fact that she's really doesn't know that much about him and doesn't like that much about him beyond the depth. She says, I love him for the man that he almost is and the man that he wants to be. And it's like, there's a lot of, problems with her investment in the relationship that kind of gets washed away a little bit as the movie goes on, as though she's really in love, but he's not. And I'm like, neither one of them sell it. And maybe
they both are so desperate for somebody, that they're like, "Oh, you're here, let's do this."
And I think the final scene is supposed to be like, "Oh, they've come to terms with the fact that they really are going to work out for each other." And I'm not. I don't know that I don't know that he was going for the complexity.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
Scotch.
I'm body bagging just Tom Cruise and his overacting. I'm not sure who's a bigger overactor in the him or Jim Carrey, honestly, because I was just watching this and just some of his scene, the whole thing was like, I'm not going to do what you think I'm going to do and freak out. It's like, dude, nobody's going to act like that. And are you serious? It's just weird. And I just, for some reason, I was just watching this movie with a completely different view, and all his scenes bothered me. Him crawling up to when in the beginning when he's having after he wakes up and he has his dream and he's crawling up to the fucking computer and all dramatic and shit. It was just too much, and it pissed me off, and I was just pissed.
So the scene where I had that reaction was he's on the phone pretending to be Kush. Oh, yeah. And he holds this really intense smile, and it focuses on him really heavily. And I was like, when did we jump into American Psycho? Why is he Christian Bale ready to kill people? I was like, this is freaking me out right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I just didn't buy it this time around. And again, I loved this movie the first few times I watched it. I've watched it a billion times. I always enjoyed it. This time I just sat back and watched it, and I was pissed.
I don't know whose point it was. I think it was yours, that this is all colored by we know more about Tom Cruise now, right? I think that's a huge part
of it.
And
I wonder if that's what tainted my whole point. Who knows?
Possibly.
Although I still love Vanilla Sky.
All right, let's move forward.
I still love The Enemy.
Crackle, Pluto, HBO, find anime on Crunchyroll, Peacock, Hulu, Disney, Netflix, Disney, Sling TV, Shudder, Fubo. What the fuck is Fubo? I'm sure it'll cause a sensation. It's a streaming recommendation.
All right, streaming recommendations. What did Jerry Maguire make you think about? What are you going to tell our BVK fans to go and check out on their own?
The only thing I could think of was a love story that, and I don't know how, I'm curious to know what other people think of this movie, but it's a movie that has Kelly Preston in it as well. And a love story that I actually bought a hell of a lot more than Jerry Maguire for Love of the Game.
Oh, I didn't know. I forgot she was in that.
Kelly Preston and Kevin Costner.
It's kind of underrated. There are parts of it that I don't love, but I actually really kind of like it.
I fucking love this movie, and I don't know why. It's just, of course, it's just the whole story. It's got Vince Scully in the background, which is kind of weird because he's like, why would Vince Scully be doing a Tigers-Yankees game? Which, whatever. But anyway, I just love them. I like the story. It's got it's pretty cool how they he's pitching a game and he's like thinking about his life and his whole reaction with Kelly Preston. And I don't know. I love it. For the love of the game, it's on Stars if you have a subscription, or you can rent it anywhere else.
There you go. Nate.
So I'm going to go pretty far. I'm going to kind of go rogue here because this isn't all that close of a tie. But I talked about this as more of like a romantic dramedy, if we're going to talk about that. And I saw one recently that I loved, and I told the guys about that, and that's Cha-Cha Real Smooth.
Great movie.
On Apple Plus. It's one that I kind of almost completely missed. It's got Dakota Johnson. It's a little hard to describe. I mean, the basic premise is that there's this guy that, are surrounding like bat mitzvahs, and he sort of is like an MC for them accidentally, and he interacts with this single mother and her kid, and so there's a little bit of that element to it too, and it's a little bit of a dramedy. I don't know, it just kind of blew me away. And I
still haven't watched it yet, unfortunately. I think I sent you the trailer for it.
And the main actor,
he did, a while back.
The main actor is the director, right?
Of the movie, yeah.
The movie. And I can't think of his fucking name right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm missing that too. So, Apple Plus, Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Give it a shot. It's a weird name, but it's a great movie.
So, I think that there's a real easy answer to this, and if you want to talk about awesome shit with sports agents and a show that I really dug, and that is an actor that I don't love, which is Dwayne Johnson in Ballers. I don't know if you guys have watched Ballers, series on HBO. I really like it. This episodes are it's like the sports agent version of Entourage almost. It's the episodes are really quick.
That's a great description.
Yeah, they're like 20 minutes, and man, it's good. It's got a lot of really topical stuff. They talk about a lot of the same stuff. There's a lot of concussion talk. There's a lot, he's a sports agent. Very cool. I like it. You guys should check it out. I watched the entire series, which I don't normally do. I usually watch stuff about 3/4 of the way and then give up.
Denzel's kid, John David Washington.
He's great in it. And he moves on to the movie that he did with Nolan. He's absolute dog shit in it. I don't understand how he could be the same guy.
I thought he was okay in it, but all right. My pick is not streaming, so sorry about that. But Mystery Alaska, another kind of sports / dramedy. It's definitely got a lot. It's a lot about relationships. Mm-hmm. Relationships that are fizzling out, relationships that are illicit, all sorts of different things going on in this little small town. Great movie from one crow to the next. It's Russell this time. Check it out. But you're going to have to rent it because it's not streaming.
I've never seen that. It's a hockey movie?
Oh, dude. Mystery Alaska?
Yeah, I've
good
never
one.
seen it.
It's fun.
Solid. Really good one.
Is it like Northern Exposure or...
I've never seen that. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's the premise is very silly sports because it's the New York Rangers come to play like this like pond hockey team. Like it's like the local little town team that plays on the pond, and the New York Rangers come and play them. So,
but that's like the sort of climax of the movie. I mean, the movie is a lot more about this little town and the culture that surrounds this very like. Primitive's not the right
hardworking, small town, Alaska.
Blue collar
hockey. That's a good one.
There's a lot of actors in it that you'll like,
there's the guy.
Yeah. Tons and tons of people that you know. Yeah.
Yep. So check out Mr. Alaska. All right. I think we're moving forward.
No jet wash for Maverick, Meg still on that goose stick. Iceberg list Titanic, Leo's drawing that nude shit. Jim fucks Nadia like we all thought he should. Ricky and Doughboy get the fuck out the hood. Luke hooks up with Leia just like he's intending. It's time for a reshelf and alternate endings.
All right. It's a reshelf time. Alternate endings. Who's got something for me? How you changing Jerry Maguire?
I mean, I am curious to see how Jerry Maguire told Don. And I mean,
that's gonna be a fun one.
So what I have is so the movie is exactly the same. At the very end, he walks into the room and he does his whole spiel, and he says after he says, "You complete me," she stares at him like in utter disbelief, and she's like, "You love me so much that you have to steal a line from a deaf guy."
Wow.
You can't use your agent tricks when it comes to true love. I only complete you because you can't be alone. Who wants coffee? And then all the divorcees start babbling and talking, whatever. And Jerry slinks out the door.
I love that.
Final shot is him walking down the street alone, looking at his little black book.
Oh, I kind of like that.
God damn. I mean, I'm kind of in that same direction. I said it's more of a part 2 rather than like an alternate ending, but Jerry Maguire 2, show me the MRI. Jerry's kind of short on cash. He's trying to keep his limited clients on the field. They're getting concussion after concussion. And there's an NFL team doctor who finally writes a memo similar to his like early one. And he really kind of takes it to heart. He's like, damn, okay, this guy's right. And he refuses to negotiate any more contracts for his overly concussed players. He forfeits, future paychecks, and he's unable to pay his bills. And Dorothy and Ray leave him.
I think that's like the best ending. The best ending is Jerry ending up in like broken alone, right? But I think the way that this movie gets even better is if you change the name of it from Jerry Maguire to Rod Tidwell, and you just follow Rod and his wife and his kids. His kids funny, like freaking that whole thing. You just have Jerry as like a bit player. You don't even know what's going on with Jerry. He just like kind of comes in and out every once in a while, and then you've got Rod like going through his kind of ups and downs. He's in the league. He's struggling. He finally, has a cool. Maybe that's where Jerry comes in. He has the cool conversation with him where he like kind of challenges him and tells him, you don't play with heart. And he's like, fuck you, I'm gonna play with heart. You know what I mean? Goes out there, tears it up, and then you have the same crescendo and the same ending, and you get to celebrate with Rod instead of fucking this bullshit where Jerry's like, oh, this is my wife, I think, that I kind of like. Maybe.
Well, what's interesting is because like I saw a little blurb that somebody asked Cameron Crowe about a sequel, and he said the only thing I really could see is if the Tidwells were the next thing. Like, so he agrees. Like, I think the most interesting aspect of all of this would be to see what happens with Rod and his wife and everything like that.
I just want at least one conversation between Rod and his wife where they're talking about Jerry like behind his back, like some of the shit that they say about him. Like,
she's like, he's got a tiny dick, right? And he's like, fucking definitely.
Brad's choking.
Dying over you. All right, Nate, what's you got?
Okay, I want you guys to truly try to picture this. Okay, I want really try to put yourself in the moment. So we're going back. We've watched the entire movie. Okay, for real, and not this isn't Fantasyland. Like this is really the way the movie's going. So we watched the entire movie. He realizes that he misses her. He realizes that he wants to be with her. He goes to the house. He shows up in the cab. He walks in the living room. Right, they all look at him. He makes his plea. Right. He says, he gets to the end. He says, you complete me. And she says, shut up. You had me at, and before she can get hello out, all the divorcees who are vampires attack Jerry.
You motherfucker.
And they just rip him apart. And Dorothy is just stunned because she doesn't know either. And she just like literally just blood splattering on Dorothy. She's kind of like, get out of the way. And then it just ends with like these, just Jerry's like severed head in the living room with the kid going, the human head weighs 8 pounds.
Or you see like Lip Nicky walk in, he like picks it up by the hair to take it into the bathroom to weigh it. Yeah.
And then, Jerry Maguire till dawn.
Oh, that's a great, wonderful way.
I didn't think he would be able to do it. He did it.
And the final thing we can talk about is, I don't know if anybody's got any movie ending songs, but they do end with a little Bob Dylan song. And if you wanted to change that up and be a little bit more topically topical, you could go with a little Quiet Riot, Mental Health, Bang Your Head. Little
is that concussion joke?
It's a little concussion joke. Bang your head right at the end.
I always wonder, this is off topic, sort of. Like, I watch these music videos and like I've never really been to I've been to a lot of metal shows, but not a lot of shows where dudes are like really headbanging. Like you could really like shake your fucking skull up. Like Scott, you're probably like the most the biggest rock star that I know. Like do people hurt their fucking brains headbanging?
I think that's a thing.
It has to be, right?
I did a lot of headbanging.
Did you?
In my day. That's why I say so many stupid things.
I'm just saying, dude. Like I would think, like your brain's
I
rattling
swear to
around.
God, there were times because I fucking straight up would bang my head. I listened to a lot of heavy metal and
especially
bang your
drumming.
head,
Yeah, for sure.
And you'd get so lightheaded, and you'd
Dude.
be like, "Holy shit, what just happened?" You'd like be kind of whatever, like moving around. Yeah, you fuck yourself up.
Dude, when they do those little like computer images of like, this is what your brain looks like when it's getting concussed, and it's like just that little soggy thing like bouncing around in the skull. I'm like, that doesn't look like fun.
I mean, I think that there's like research to show that people that headbang at concerts have mild forms of CTE.
I would think
There's been evidence of this, I think.
Hey,
So don't headbang.
it was worth it.
Or play pro football.
All right. Well, folks, that about wraps up a BVK podcast. We talked about Jerry Maguire, but next week we're coming back at you with a draft, and we're going to be drafting the most memorable romantic one-liners from films. And I cannot say I'm happy about this because this is just, I picked this movie.
You picked this movie and this draft category.
I know, but they call it like I know, but I did it for you, man.
Yeah.
They call this movie a romantic comedy because it's like the one that you can take your guy to because it's got football and sports, but it's also romantic comedy. I don't know if I agree with that. And so most romantic lines, you guys are probably gonna have some amazing ones, and I'm gonna be like, I don't know, who knows? We'll see.
I'm just laughing at Nate's cat fucking yelling at us this whole time.
Wrap it up, bitch.
Go to bed. Yeah, I think when you hear the cat, it's time to go to bed. Folks,
Hey,
it's been a pleasure.
time's a flat circle here on Bev's Video Kingdom. We may have already done this draft, and it's really fucking good. You guys need to tune in next week and listen to it because it was really funny. It made me laugh. So you guys should check it out.
And we'll have a returning guest, a guest judge who has been here at the BVK Outdoor Studio before. She's coming back to judge our romanticals. So we'll see.
Romanticals.
Yeah. Anything else? Follow us on the socials.
Yeah. Say nice things about us. Comment. Come.
Share.
Interact.
Get
with
some
us.
people say, God damn it, you should be listening to this show.
Please like us.
Bye-bye.